Here it is. All right, looks like we're live. Hello, everyone. Here we go.
Hi.
Hopefully this doesn't crash on us. All right, so welcome to the show tonight. We're going to continue our series with my friend and church member. I consider you a friend over a church member.
I like that.
Morgan. Say hi. She's been on before. What did we talk about before when you were on?
Being a new Christian.
That's right, being a new Christian.
Yeah, I can't believe I am back. I guess. It was awful.
She's nervous, so give her a break. But she'll do fine. Okay, so this is who I was talking about, my guest. This is what she does. She helps people through stuff like this, correct? Can you kind of just give a rundown a little bit of what you do?
Yeah, sure. So I'm an addiction counselor, and obviously trauma is closely related to addiction. And so it's something that I have to address all the time with my clients. And so I think we'll just hop right in and get started. So,
yes.
So trauma. Let me get us situated here again.
Can you read it through all those words?
I'll do my best. Okay, so trauma is the response to a deeply disturbing event. So trauma isn't the event itself, it's the way that we process it that matters. So the disturbing event has to overwhelm our coping ability for it to be considered traumatic. So why do some people become traumatized and others don't? I think of like if you have two kids and each of them like watch their dad kill a chicken to eat for dinner.
Right.
One of them is fine with it and he eats the chicken and he loves it and he's grateful. The other kid is crying and traumatized and is never going to eat chicken ever again, right? So why do you guys think that is? I want to look in the chat here.
I have my own thoughts from having kids that I would see. One would be totally fine with it, like you said, and the other, like Allie, would not be. She would be traumatized.
And that's funny because, you know, your kids are all share the same experiences in the same household and things like that. More emotional. Okay, sure. So, yeah, it could have something to do just with individual personality for sure. Anyone else have any questions?
Any comments?
Input on that? No? All right. We'll get more people in a minute.
Yeah.
Okay, so everyone has a unique capacity to handle stress. Children generally have limited coping skills as compared to adults because adults have had many different types of experiences that they've been able to overcome, so they can look back on those experiences to help them get through other experiences later down the road. Children are more likely to integrate their trauma into their worldview. And so worldview is just like our perception, the way that we see the world, the way that we see our experiences. And so there's also been a correlation between process avoidance and increased stress response. So we'll talk about that in a minute. Women are more likely to develop the disorder of PTSD than men are, but men are more likely to consider an event traumatic than a woman.
Really?
Yeah, isn't that weird? Okay, so there are three types. Acute, which is a single incident, just one incident that overwhelms your ability to cope. Chronic is repeated and prolonged, so you usually think of like spousal abuse or something like that. And then complex is exposure to different types. So it's chronic and it's different types. And it's often invasive and interpersonal. So you imagine like the young child who, you know, their mom neglects them, their dad is physically abusive, and, you know, their uncle is like touching them, you know, so it's different types of trauma. And all of them have already overwhelmed the individual's ability to cope.
Right.
So it becomes compounded. So there's two categories of potentially trauma-inducing events. The first one is little t trauma, considered non-life-threatening traumas. Interpersonal conflicts, right? So that could be fighting with your spouse, fighting with somebody, infidelity, divorce, having to move. That can be very stressful for people. Legal troubles, financial difficulties. And so with the little T traumas, you usually see passive avoidance. I'm just going to make a note so I remember where
Do you think with the little T that even something like a church split or church problems?
Absolutely.
Because I know that can be really hard, especially, and for pastors too, when they have a church split, it can do a lot of damage emotionally and mentally to them. I've seen it with pastors that I've known in real life, and then even church members. My husband talked about it a little bit a couple weeks ago. But actually, like, leaving church in a bad way can be very detrimental to someone's, psyche and mental things. So I almost think that would fit in with those.
Yeah, for sure. So passive avoidance. Passive avoidance is like where you just don't want to talk about it. You don't want to think about it. You just kind of stuff it down.
That's probably what I would do for the most part.
And then big T trauma is potentially life-threatening or life-threatening. So you think of natural disasters. We had the 9/11 terrorist attacks, physical assault, being attacked, being raped, combat, being in the military, and a car accident, a vehicle accident. And then with those, usually more often see overt avoidance, where if you get into a car accident on the highway, then you no longer want to drive on the highway. You'll avoid the highway. So now we're going to move into symptoms. Symptoms of trauma, emotional, physical, and cognitive. So I want to see what the chat says. Hi, Abby.
Here. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah. So what do you ladies think some emotional responses to trauma would be?
Well, some of them said with the kids that they're more emotional, personality difference.
Absolutely.
That's totally what I see in my kids. Fear.
Right. And so also back on that point with the kid and the chickens, right? So, maybe one kid grew up on a farm, and so he's already been exposed to death. And so it's not something that is jarring to him. But then the kid who lives in the city who sees the animal die, right? It's like they can't handle it.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
Right.
And then there was some down here that you said. What are your response?
Sometimes teens are bullied in youth groups, for sure. Hi, everyone. Defensiveness. Okay, yeah. Feeling unloved. Yep. Yeah, so you're talking about the emotional responses. So isolation, and that goes right in with feeling unloved, right? So feeling alone, feeling like you're different from other people, feeling like you're disconnected from other people's experiences. Agitation, anger. A lot of times they say that anger is just an expression of other types of emotions that are kind of being stuffed down. Anhedonia, the inability to feel pleasure. So
I've never heard that. What's that word again?
Anhedonia. So
anhedonia.
It's like numbness. Like you're numb to feeling. You don't feel good when you know you should feel good about things. Sometimes the opposite is true, where things that you should be really sad about don't trigger that reaction. Let's see what we have. Avoidance, jealousy. I think masking your feelings. Okay, yeah.
And then pessimism, thinking everything could go badly, shutting
down.
Sure,
yeah. And that kind of goes hand in hand with personality, just kind of the way that we've already been programmed to think. So depression is another emotional side effect or symptom. That's just feeling very sad. I'm sure we all know what it's like to just kind of feel down in the dumps, But depression, it can be even worse than that, where you don't even want to get out of bed. You don't feel like your life is meaningful. And another emotional symptom is mood swings. Physical symptoms. So there are changes that occur in the brain for people that have trauma, right? And then, like I said before, it's not the event, it's the way that we've processed it. That's what the trauma is. So hallmark features of the brain imaging on brain imaging is the reduction in the size of the hippocampus, the area responsible for creating and retrieving and distinguishing old and recent memories. And then They frequently see increased activity in the amygdala. Both parts of the brain are near the brainstem, like deep in the middle of your brain.
Mm-hmm.
So the amygdala processes your fear reactions. So you could see how that would change the way you perceive things, right?
Right.
Some other physical changes or physical symptoms: sleep. You could be more restless, have a hard time falling asleep, have bad dreams or nightmares when you do fall asleep. Gastrointestinal. So they have found that in people who have trauma, that there's less variation of good gut bacteria and increased numbers of bad gut bacteria.
Mm-hmm.
Cardiovascular, increased heart rate, blood pressure. Muscular, significant tension. Any other physical symptoms that that you think are notable that I didn't mention?
That's all good.
IBD. Yep.
Oh yeah. Well,
lots of gut problems.
Yeah, gastrointestinal.
There's this connection between our brain and gut that
Mm-hmm.
we haven't even figured out yet. We just know that
Right.
there is one. Yeah. Let me just check and see here. Okay. All right. Good.
Hope said sounds similar to my fibromyalgia.
Yeah. Fibromyalgia. That's awful.
Do you think fibromyalgia could ever be related? I mean, it has a lot of these same problems.
Sure. Yeah. And I think we'll be hitting on that right at the end here, where obviously there's physical connections, right? So
someone said exhaustion and low energy.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's part of not being able to sleep too.
Yep. Angeli. Yep. Okay, so cognitive or your thought process, the process is the way that we think. So often people who have trauma, they will ruminate. So ruminating is thinking about the trauma over and over and over again. It's like a record that's on repeat, and you can't turn it off. It's just involuntary. You're going over it and over it and over it. Intrusive thoughts. So you don't want to think about it, but you continue to think about it anyway. Okay, so here's some of the thought errors that are common with people who've experienced trauma. Thought errors involving perception about events or perception about like the world around you. So catastrophizing is a thought error. So we imagine the worst possible outcome is the only option. Shoulds. We form strict rules and unrealistic expectations. Filtering and magnifying. We filter out positives and magnify negatives. And somebody was talking in the chat earlier about positive mental attitude, right? There is a lot to be said for a positive mental attitude. Emotional reasoning. So we decide because something feels true that it must be true. Polarized thinking. We see everything as black and white without considering that there may be information that is unknown to you, making the situation more nuanced. So I'm going to check in, see what these ladies are talking about. They're just chatting. That's good. Okay, so thought errors involving perceptions about other people. Blaming. We feel that someone else is always responsible, or inappropriate self-blame. So self-blame, inappropriate self-blame. Have you heard about that? So it's also called inappropriate guilt. So I don't know if you know the type of person who is just constantly apologizing.
Yes.
When they haven't really done anything wrong, but they still overly apologize. People that do, like, they feel that inside, like they did something wrong when they really didn't do something wrong. Paranoia, OCD, yeah, we'll get to that in just a minute. Personalization. We see all behaviors around us as responses to ourselves. Self-comparisons. We measure ourselves against others, making superior, inferior judgments that determine how we feel about ourselves, whether or not we're worthy. So if somebody else is doing better than us, then we would think that we're not even worth anything. So mind reading. We feel we know other people's thoughts, motives for their behaviors, and how they feel about us, even though they haven't said anything. The need to be right. We have to keep proving that we know best in our action and words, no matter the cost. So, any thoughts or questions about what we just went over here about the thought errors? Thanks, Celine.
That's nice. I like her too. That's funny.
Okay, yeah, Royal. Yep.
I think that's a big problem. I know for me as a pastor's wife too, you know, there's this like misconception that you have to have it all together and be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Like you never struggle with anything. So I find it kind of hard. I have a select few that I will truly open up to and just share my insecurities and my, you know, because we all have insecurities.
Yeah.
So
it could, you know, signal a problem if people are opening up too deeply to people that they don't know very well.
Oh, that makes me feel better.
Yeah.
I don't open up to that many people. Then Karen asked, I missed the intro. If you went over your background, have you ever heard of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming? A lot of it's similar to what she's been researching.
I have. I don't know a lot about it. But yeah, there was like maybe one day in school that we went over it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, it's not really something that I work with at all.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know a ton about it. What do you know about it? Our house.
She's been researching it. And kind of what I was talking to you about before. Remember how I said she's been kind of going into just our mental well-being and how it affects, you know, our moods and everything. Yeah, maybe Matt said, Matt is her husband, maybe tag at Gently Led Sisters if you have something you want to make sure then get to, because then it will pop up in orange. And we can see it
and now that he's in the chat, I want to remind everybody that this is immortalized on the internet. So just be aware of what you're sharing.
Yes, that's true.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good thought. I'm glad you put that in there. And then she said, delete, distort, and generalize.
No, that's not ringing a bell. Maybe I'll go check
how our brain functions.
Yeah, like I had to do whole classes on the way our brains work and things like that. And I know I went over it. It just, you know, how if you don't use something, you just don't. And I'm sure there are people that's what they use all the time. They use that information all the time. This is information I use all the time. So, okay, so moving on. So common disorders and identifying symptomology. So this is not exhaustive. It's just kind of the more prominent symptoms that you would see with some of these disorders. And I did bring my DSM in case anybody had any questions about specific disorders that I'm not covering here. We can let you know what you need to know. So common disorders with trauma, anxiety disorders, right? PTSD, that's probably one of the most common ones. Includes flashbacks, hyperarousal. It's kind of like an exaggerated startle response. Even just like kind of hearing some wind rustling out the window, you might be like just kind of freaked out for a second. And so for diagnosis, you have to have your symptoms persist for over a month. And with PTSD, you may not have your symptoms start directly after the event, precipitating event. It may take a month, it may take months, it may even be longer than that. And then there's acute stress disorder in the anxiety family. Symptoms begin shortly after the event and last less than a month. And so that is somebody who basically successfully processed their trauma, right? So they had a period of time where they were bothered, where they had symptoms, and then they were able to either utilize whatever coping skills that they already had, or maybe they were able to grab some along the way right after the trauma that then maybe they had some help or something. And so then they are, they don't qualify for the PTSD. So dissociative disorders. So dissociative identity disorder, 2 or more distinct personalities, and missing time are 2 of the common symptoms there with that.
So there are actually people with Multiple personalities.
Yeah, it used to be called multiple personality disorder.
Uh-huh.
Yep. Yeah.
That's always been very intriguing to me.
Yeah, it is. It is. And in the DSM, they do make a reference where depending on the person's culture and religious beliefs, that it may be viewed as demon possession.
Right.
So
they said that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that it may be viewed that way.
Yeah. Yeah. So dissociation and derealization. And this is more common than you would think directly after something very traumatizing. So it's feeling disconnected from yourself or disconnected from reality. It's like leaving your body and just kind of watching. It's not like you're viewing it from above, but it's like you're not there. It's like there's some kind of wall that's been put up where they claim that it's like you're in a dream. So you feel like you're not in real life, but you're in a dream, or you're somehow disconnected from yourself. You're not living your life.
Someone asked, when do these disorders tend to spike? Are teens, young adults, or elders more likely to go through these issues?
So it depends. It depends on the disorder. Some disorders that I'm not even going to talk about with children, just because it's sad and I don't treat children. They're only for children, and some things they're only for 6 and above. Or to be honest, I don't want to say arbitrary the way that they develop the symptoms to determine what they are, but I will tell you that they change it every few years. So if that tells you anything about how scientific it is. So anyway, dissociative. Okay, so we're at the personality disorders. Cassandra went over that last week, so I'm not going to touch on any of those. Bipolar disorder. So bipolar 1, it's cycling through episodes of mania, which includes grandiose ideation. So grandiose ideation, it makes me think of the guy who came in to the church last year.
Yes, who thought he was Michael
the Archangel. So that's an example of grandiose ideation. Usually unusually high energy in the main manic episode, and goal-focused activity. It has to last at least a week, and then they cycle into the depressive episodes, deep sadness, hopelessness, emptiness. And then bipolar 2 is different because it's hypomania. So basically the difference is the amount of time that your episode lasts. So for bipolar 2, the mania is at least 4 days, but less than 7. And so it's they're very similar. It's just the timing of how long the episodes last is when you distinguish between what to diagnose. Depressive disorder. So major depressive disorder, at least 2 consecutive weeks of at least 5 criteria. And again, I'm not exhaustive with the criteria. I'm just giving some main points here. So recurring thoughts of death, daily fatigue, weight loss, not explained by any other reason, hypersomnia, so sleeping all the time, and then reduced concentration, reduced memory, things like that. Those are all in the same clump. And then moving on, premenstrual dysphoric disorder. It's marked irritability, increased emotional sensitivity, PMS, right? That's
I was gonna say it. Isn't this just something all women have?
Right? Increased emotional sensitivity, lethargic, feeling overwhelmed. Symptoms begin within 1 week of your cycle and improve shortly after onset. So it is a monthly occurring situation, right? I'll check in the chat just to see what
Ashley had
a
good thought. I've never even asked you about this. How you feel about this?
About medicine and depression. Okay, so I purposefully didn't put anything about medicine.
It's very controversial.
Yeah, I just, you have to do your own research. I don't take any medicine, but that doesn't mean that I am going to say don't ever take any medicine. I can't live your life for you. You have to check it for yourself. I do know this. Any medication that you take is going to have side effects. So make yourself aware of what the side effects are and determine whether or not the benefit outweighs the risk.
And I have heard, I know I've had some women reach out to me I had said something about medicine. If it comes to you having thoughts of killing yourself, it's better just to take the medicine. But then I had some women reach out to me and tell me that they were on medication at one time for their depression and it actually made it worse. Like it made the suicidal thoughts worse.
That's a chance that people take. So that's one of the side effects for depression.
See, I don't understand that, because isn't that the whole point, to not make you kill yourself? Why would they give you something with a side effect?
You know what?
Is it the way it interacts with your body? Maybe it does differently, or what?
I don't know. All I know is that they used to perform lobotomies not too long ago in history.
That's true.
So
that is true.
Okay, so depressive disorder. Major depressive disorder, or we just went over that. Okay, disruptive impulse and conduct disorders. So intermittent explosive disorder, unpremeditated verbal aggression and destructive behavior, unproportionate to the stressor. Oppositional defiant disorder, and you'll see that one in kids who also have diagnoses for ADHD, autism, other types of developmental disorders. So oppositional defiant disorder easily loses temper, persistently argumentative, and also vindictive. So it's somebody that will purposefully act spiteful toward you if you cross them.
Where do you think the line is? I'm going to throw this in here. I'm going to throw this at you. Okay, coming from a Christian perspective, because I know scientists can pretty much give a disorder to everything, right?
Yeah.
So where does the line start between having a disorder from past trauma and then just not dealing with it, to just like sin problems, like temper problems, because there's we all have anger issues at some point. So
the line is meeting the criteria. That's it. When it comes to diagnosing and it comes to just having regular, every issue that I'm going over is issues that's common to all of us, but on different levels, right? So, for instance, when it comes to polarized thinking, right? Thinking in black and white instead of considering nuances, we all do that to some level.
We do. We all have our own set of beliefs.
Right. It's just people who have experienced trauma, they do it more, and they have a harder time pulling back from these errors.
So it's like stuff that we all kind of struggle with, but when you haven't dealt with certain things in your life, it could explode into just taking over your life, basically.
Sure, yeah.
Where we might deal with this every, because even those of us that have PMS, we might deal with it 2 days out of the month, where, there might be some women that maybe it's harder and they deal with it for a week. Maybe they're overwhelmed by the thoughts that they've never dealt with, or
but to get the diagnosis, it has to be already relieved of only like 2 days after you start your cycle. So if you're maintaining that depressive state afterwards, then they would do a differential diagnosis. They would say it could be this, or it could be major depressive disorder. Let's keep an eye on the symptoms.
Right.
Let's see what you ladies are saying.
They said, I wish churches could talk more open and honest about this stuff. And I really wish they would. I'm sure there are many people suffering quietly in churches for fear of having their emotional struggles amplified by judgment and exclusion.
Yeah.
This was kind of a very taboo subject when I was growing up. And obviously, I've talked about it before. You're hearing it being preached by a man from the pulpit. And I grew up under preachers that were saying that, any type of medicine is sinful. They would just declare that. And it's never depression. There's never a medical reason for it other than it's a sin problem.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Which I don't totally agree with, because I do believe, especially being a woman and going through hormonal changes, I know hormones can really deal with, wreak havoc on your responses to things. And I have known people, I think there was something like chemically wrong with them.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Well, we talked about the brain changes with trauma, right? So it not only is it changes to the parts of your brain, but it's also changes in your neurotransmitters.
Right.
So the way that your brain is connecting and the way that it's communicating with itself. So I have a question here, New Day Dawning, schizophrenia. So good thing I brought my handy DSM. Let me just pull it up for you real quick.
exactly what is it and is there help?
Yeah, I can tell you exactly what it is. And yeah, there is help. And usually it does involve medication.
My grandma was schizophrenic near the end of her life. And if she was not on her medication, it was way worse.
Right.
Of course, she was, in her 80s and things, but she would have hallucinations. And and with her, it was just a result of her brain dying. She had the Alzheimer's and her brain was deteriorating. So it was definitely the, and Shara said anxiety can come at different levels for people too. For sure. And that's kind of what, we're talking about, some of these different disorders and things. They definitely can come at different levels. Because I have known, even personally in my own life, I've known people that have maybe, lost a close one, someone close to them. And I've also lost a couple people close to me, but we all handle things in different ways, right?
Right.
And it was very, I don't know, maybe the other person dealt with it horribly, and it just destroyed their whole life.
Yeah. So, you may have already had loss. So you had already built up skills to deal with severe loss. Other people, they might not have. Okay, so schizophrenia. So you need to have 2 or more of the following, each present for a significant portion of time during a 1-month period. So at least one of these must be 1, 2, or 3. So delusions. So delusions is seeing things that aren't there. That's hallucination. So delusions are having thoughts about things that don't exist. Hallucinations are seeing things, and I want to be specific because that's how I was taught in school, seeing things that other people don't see.
Right.
All right. Disorganized speech, frequent derailment or incoherence, so talking incoherently, grossly disorganized or catatonic behavior. Catatonic means like you're not speaking, you're motionless and emotionless. And then negative symptoms are symptoms that, like, the way that I remembered it is the positive ones are what is added to you, and the negative ones are what is removed from you. So like anhedonia would be one, right? Because your ability to feel pleasure has been removed. So that's a negative symptom. So B, for a significant portion of the time since the onset of the disturbance, level of functioning is in one or more major areas. So work, interpersonal, self-care, markedly below the level achieved prior to the onset. Meaning you used to take care of your hygiene, but now you don't. You used to have good interpersonal relationships, and now you don't. Continuous signs of the disturbance persist for at least 6 months. The 6-month period must include at least 1 month of symptoms that meet the criterion A that we went over: the delusions, hallucinations, speech, disorganized, catatonic behavior, and the negative symptoms. Schizoaffective disorder and depressive or bipolar disorder with psychotic features has been ruled out. 1, no major depressive or manic episodes. 2, mood episodes have occurred during an active phase symptoms. They have been present for a minority of a total duration of the active and residual periods of the illness. The disturbance is not attributable to the psychological effects of substances. If there is a history of autism spectrum disorder or communication disorder, there may be additional diagnosis needed. So specifying first episode, acute episode, specifying with partial remission, so they are beginning to improve, they're losing symptoms. First episode in full remission, multiple episodes currently in partial remission, multiple episodes currently in full remission. So whenever you hear full remission, then you know that I don't think anybody says cured, but once you don't meet the criteria anymore, you still have the label. That's just the way that it works. They just call it in remission, right? And the same as with substance use disorders, and that was the last one on my list. I'm not going to go into any detail on that because I'll just talk about that all night. That's my
That's your specialty.
Yeah. Okay, so now this is the good part. Let me check in on the chat.
Ashley said, I think COVID caused depression in many people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the side effects scientists have been talking about. It's going to happen the longer this goes.
Yeah. It's a natural disaster, right?
It is, yeah. Mm-hmm. Well,
so it's a big T trauma.
Mm-hmm. See, and I feel like in my life, especially at the beginning, this was a big deal for me. You know, we all have our traumas that we handle differently. And it was a very, very big deal for me. And I think that's why it bothered me when it was just pushed off by other Christians as I'm just a complainer. Because this was something I did not, liberty is very important to me. And this was traumatic, just having all these rights taken away, especially when it came to trying to shut down the churches.
Yeah.
And it really bothered me, the flippant attitude of a lot of Christians calling me a complainer, telling me to just stop talking about it, and I have become more careful in the last couple of months because I just don't want to deal with backlash from talking about it,
Right.
So that's why church is so important here, because we're able to, without fear of, judgment or whatever.
Yeah. And, for me personally too, I'm not scared of getting.
No.
I'm not scared of getting it. So I'm not experiencing trauma around some natural disaster.
Right.
But I am having issues like with just
I know you have.
Just the changes. It's difficult to accept change, and when change happens so fast, it strains your ability to cope. Yeah. Yeah.
I remember going grocery shopping when it wasn't even mandatory masks yet, and I was in tears when I got out to the man. And it takes a lot to make me crack. Yeah. But I was in tears, and I told one of my friends, I said, you had an issue with something, last year that was a huge deal to you. That's not to me. Well, this is my big deal. Right. This is a big deal for me.
Yeah. And there is a sense of dehumanization when you don't take seriously other people's
there is
issues surrounding trauma, right? It's real to them. Whether or not it's something that would have traumatized you or not, that doesn't even matter. It's real to them. So, okay, so now we're going to move on here into psychotherapy. So treatments that you can do with help. So I'm going to go over some very popular treatments that, and I say do with help because you would need to go and see a trained professional. These techniques require additional specialized training and credentialing. I don't have any of that. So DBT. So DBT is a therapy that is used with people with hard to treat personality disorders. It involves CBT, which we'll go over in more detail in a minute, but with a focus on radical acceptance. So radical acceptance, I just like saying that because it's a fun way. It's a fun way to say it.
Radical acceptance.
Radical acceptance. So recognizing, and so these are the steps to achieving radical acceptance. So first, you have to recognize that you're resisting reality. You have to recognize that you don't want to. You don't want it. You don't want the truth. You just want to totally ignore it. And that's the hardest part in anything, is recognizing that there's an issue with the way that you're thinking. So some clues, and this is going to be helpful, some clues that you are resisting reality: bitterness, resentfulness to other people, frequently unhappy or frequently frustrated, thinking if X could change, then I'll be happy.
That's a huge problem with women. Like, if only I could get married, I would be happy. Yeah. And now they're married. If only I could have a kid, I'd be happy.
Yeah, because it never ends. So that's why that thinking process is a problem. Yeah. Because there's always going to be something that fits into X.
Yep.
Trying to force others to change. So that could be a sign that you are resisting reality. So number 2, then you turn toward acceptance. So first, you must become willing to accept reality. You don't even have to accept reality yet.
I don't want to accept reality right now.
But the goal is to get you to admit that you would be willing to accept reality. So, and then that moves into making the internal commitment to accept what is the facts, what is reality.
Look what Sheila just said. Not sure where we are in the discussion. Just wanted to share. I had trauma in my life that keeps me from being able to wear a mask. I tried. I literally start panicking.
Yep. Absolutely. You know, Sheila, I'm with you. I'm with you on that. It's distressing to wear a mask for me.
It is. Me too.
I guess I don't understand why more people aren't distressed.
Me too.
It makes it difficult to breathe.
Yeah. It makes me kind of panic because I'm already a little claustrophobic.
Yep. Absolutely.
I hate that feeling.
But that's fine for the people, you know, I don't want to even get into it because I respect other people's opinions on it too.
Right.
My opinion isn't the only opinion.
Yep.
Okay, so number 3, so we talked about becoming willing to accept. So number 3, use your body to help. So there are 2 techniques in DBT that are used. They use muscle relaxation and smiling. Oh. So what they'll have you do is they'll have you relax your muscles. They'll have you sit with your palms up on your lap.
I'm gonna try this every morning.
Yep, and they'll have you do like a little half smile, and then you just check in to see, are you more willing to accept reality now?
No, not not working yet. I'm gonna go do it every morning. Check back in a week.
I will. Okay, so number 4. So you act as if you have accepted reality, even if you didn't yet. You pretend like you did. You test it out. You try it on.
I'm kind of there a little bit.
Yeah.
I wore the mask on the plane. Okay. I wear the mask into the midwife.
Yeah.
But I'm still not wearing it in the stores. So is that okay not to accept that part of it?
I think that it's okay for you to get away with not putting it on whenever you don't have to put it on.
Yeah.
Matt still doesn't put it on. I had to wear one.
I know. She went so long without wearing one.
My first time.
Went so long.
But you know what? That's fine. It is what it is. I'm going to accept it.
You're going to accept reality. And I've accepted it for the parts where I can't change it.
Yeah.
With mainly kind of a good attitude. Not really, but getting there. Getting there.
Okay. So act as if you have already accepted reality. So if you're unable or unwilling to accept reality, you can pretend that you have. Notice how it feels. So it's just kind of like imagining. So how would I be feeling right now if I accept reality? How would my behavior change if I accept reality? Radical acceptance does not equal approval, especially to bad things that people have done to you. Accepting reality doesn't mean that you're forgiving them. Right. It doesn't mean that you're compassionate toward them. It just means you're accepting a set of facts to be true. Okay.
I think that's really good because I know, I'm sorry, I'm comparing a lot of this to COVID thing, but this has been a traumatic year for me when it comes to this kind of stuff. But I think that's true because a couple of months ago, I just realized there's nothing I could do about this. And once I got to that point and I accepted that, I was at peace. You know, where before I was very angry about it, fighting it, you know, where now I still do my own little things when it comes to things like the mask, but overall I'm more at peace.
Yeah.
You know, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And there's an element of habituation, just being exposed to the same thing over and over and over again that just makes it less startling and upsetting to you over time.
The new normal.
Right. The new normal. Exactly.
I don't like the new
unfortunately. I don't either. You know, I don't know what to do. Someone tell me what to do.
There's something there. I think it's just accepting the things you can't change in life. And there's something.
I think that one of my problems is that I feel like, how can we not be changing this? This has to be something that we can change.
And that was me.
Nobody's changing it?
That was me at the beginning. Like, why aren't more people standing up to this? Which is why I wanted to be so vocal about it. And now I don't know if I'm at like a sense of resignation. Like, well, I can't fight this by myself. You know, little Cassandra here in Illinois.
Exactly. So, and I think it's helpful to just realize that our country's getting what it deserves.
Yeah, we are.
What we're seeing is just a manifestation of people's hearts. They want the mask. They want to cover their face. They want the vaccines.
Yeah, they do.
So that's where they're at. That
They want to be controlled.
They do, yeah. And we might hit on that a little bit later about internal locus of control versus external. Some people, they just do what they're told. They don't question it. That's an external locus of control. Internal is you use your critical thinking skills. You don't just do what people tell you to do.
Yep. And I think that's a big, I know, because some of my friends and I are like, how are we the only ones seeing this? Does everyone's lost their critical thinking? They're just going along with whatever they're told. Yeah, I would definitely notice that.
Okay, so we're going back to us.
We were on the smiling thing.
Yeah, that's all you gotta do. Just the half smile. Don't even do the full smile. Start with the half smile.
I don't even know if I could do half smile.
Okay, so psychotherapy. So we're talking about EMDR. So eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So this therapy focuses on rewiring maladaptive neural networks. When we have trauma and we have an experience that we ruminate on and think about over and over again, it's like it's like putting a groove in a record, where once you put that needle on that spot, it's gonna take it to its natural end every time. And the same thing when some of our thought patterns are triggered, it's just gonna take that same route until we do something to interrupt it. And so that's what EMDR claims to do. So they claim to rewire neural networks by connecting traumatic memories with new information via addressing trauma while focusing on external stimuli. So what they'll do is they will, when I say they, I mean the psychotherapist. So they'll have you watch a screen and there will be stimuli on there. It could be different, but they'll have you kind of be pulling up your trauma or activating that app. And then they'll start bombarding you with different stimuli. It's like a way of corrupting an app. If you think of a computer application, you know, when you click on it, it runs the way that it was programmed to run. We programmed it. Like that trauma app was programmed by us. You know, it could have been subconsciously and consciously, combination. And sometimes when we click that app, you know, it'll run through its program, and then maybe halfway through, we programmed it to initiate another app to start. And so now we're in this trauma cycle.
Right.
So what EMDR does is it corrupts the information in the app. Exposure therapy. So exposure therapy is specific to anxiety. Usually it's used with phobias, OCD, things like that. It involves increasing increments of exposure to anxiety source in a safe environment. So you're put into a safe environment where you know you're not going to be hurt, and then the therapist will then maybe, let's say you're scared of spiders. So they'll start with just showing you a picture of a spider.
Okay.
All right. And then they'll just let you sit there with it. And then always eventually your anxiety starts to come down, just because our bodies can't handle it long term to be in that excited state for too long. And then so good, that worked. So now we'll just have a spider in a box in the other side of the room. You don't even have to look at it, but just knowing that it's in there, maybe there's not even a spider in there. You know, it doesn't matter. But you think there is, so you get that raise of anxiety, and then it lowers all the way up to touching it and handling it. And there are some weird phobias out there. I know on I don't remember if it was the Maury show or whatever, but every once in a while they would do the show about the people with phobias, right? So some people are just terrified of clowns, and then they would just they'd set a clown out on stage.
Why are you killing all my fears? Spiders and clowns.
But you know what? They went on the show. They saw the show. They knew what was coming.
Man.
I know somebody who has a phobia of condiments. Talking ketchup, mustard.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Someone asked.
Oh yeah, I forgot about the chat.
What about people who tell you to fake it until you make it? I find that really uncaring personally.
Maybe, but we just went over with the DBT and the radical acceptance, right? Acting like, pretending like you have accepted reality and just sitting in it to see how it feels to play that you accepted reality. Now, accepting reality, it's easier for some people and more difficult for other people. People with more kind of disorganized thought patterns, more trauma-based thought patterns, it's a lot more difficult than just your average type of person.
Kelly said hi.
Where?
Okay.
Oh, I thought it was.
She said hi.
Oh, hi, Kelly. Somebody had said something I don't.
Pickles? You don't like pickles?
Okay, they're talking about masks.
So when you say accepting reality, you don't mean like if you're in an abusive relationship, just being like, oh, well, I'm just going to live like this forever. That you're talking about like if something traumatic has happened in your past, just accepting that it happened.
Exactly.
So that you can deal with it.
Right. You don't have to continually accept mistreatment. But it's also important for you to figure out if you're actually being mistreated or not. Sometimes we feel like we're being mistreated when we're not. When it comes to physical abuse, obviously that's clear. You know what I mean? No, you don't just sit there and accept that. That's not what I'm talking about at all.
Yeah. Just putting that out
there. After you have removed yourself from the situation, then you can accept that that is what happened and there's no changing what happened. And that's just the way it is. Okay, so exposure therapy we talked about. So treatments that you can do by yourself. And so this is a lot of what I use when I'm treating people. So cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. One of the best parts about this therapy is that you don't have to go through people's past trauma to get results from this technique. So it focuses on understanding the interconnection between thoughts, feelings, and behavior. So it's learning to step back from automatic thoughts and test them independent of your feelings. And in turn, that will change your behavior. And it's all interconnected. So behaviors create thoughts and feelings, right? So your feelings create thoughts and behaviors, and it's all intertwined. So one of the best ways to challenge your automatic thoughts is the Socratic method. So the Socratic method goes through a list of questions, and they're really good ones. So remember, next time you are finding yourself in a position.
Yeah, I like that. Make sure you read all those.
Yeah, I'm going to go through all of them. So what is the evidence for or against this thought? You don't just have to accept your thoughts. You can test them out. Am I basing this thought on facts or feelings? That's something you can ask yourself. Is this thought black and white? We talked about that thought error earlier, when reality is really more complicated. Could I be misunderstanding evidence or making assumptions? Might others have different interpretations of the same situation? And the answer is usually always yes. Am I looking at all the evidence, not just what supports my thoughts and feelings? That's something that we tend to do. Could my thoughts be exaggerated? Am I having this thought out of habit? Did someone pass this thought or belief on to me? If so, were they a reliable source?
That's a big one with women, because there's a lot of women that will try to sway thought patterns and.
Sure. Yeah. And that one makes me also think about science, right? I think it was about 6 years ago that I realized that scientists can be bought just like politicians.
Yep.
So,
or doctors, Dr. Fauci.
Yeah, it would do you good to learn how to decipher and read and understand scientific studies. Because so many people try to pass off science with trash. So you can ask yourself, is my thought a likely scenario or a worst case scenario? We are so running over. I'm so sorry.
No, we're not.
Okay, so narrative therapy.
You're fine.
It's a way to rewrite our story to better reflect our values.
Karen, you're going to like this one. I like it.
I'm going to give you an example here. So I'm going to tell you a story, true story. I was the victim of a car crash. While driving my defenseless little 87 Plymouth Duster, a lady in a large pickup truck cut me off and destroyed my front bumper. So I've been working on CBT. I've been working on challenging my thoughts. I've recognized a pattern in my thought process, specifically regarding victimhood. I frequently consider myself a victim. You could hear in the way that I told that story that I'm the victim, right? Yeah, large lady. So what I would do in narrative therapy is I would retell my story, and now it will reflect the value that I claim to have, okay? The value of taking responsibility for my actions instead of victimhood status, accountability. So my news story, so I was pulling up to a toll booth when I was looking down to get change. I didn't give myself enough time to react when I was cut off and hit the rear bumper of the lady in front of me. So both stories are true. They're just different perspectives of the exact same story. So I know a lot of time in my work, I hear people's stories over and over again, to the point where they have told their story to so many people. By the time they get to me, it's just like automatic pilot. Like it's the same details over and over again. They hadn't really considered if their values are being reflected in the story that they're telling. We all have stories, right? So narrative therapy is a way to rewrite our story. And it works also to increase our, what am I thinking of? I'm thinking of, give me a second, it'll come to me.
Thinking outside the box?
No, our self-esteem.
Self-esteem.
Yeah, so it can also work to improve our self-esteem. If we, are the victim in the story, we can change it around to acknowledge the ways that we had strength in that story. Maybe we had omitted that otherwise. So, okay, more ways to help yourself. SMART goals. So SMART goals are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-oriented. So you want your goal to be specific. You break up a large goal into its smallest components. You want it to be measurable. You determine what evidence proves you're making progress. You want to be able to know when you've accomplished it. Attainable. Choose goals that you feel confident in that you can accomplish. Make it easy. Relevant. A goal should be aligned with your values and your long-term objectives. So SMART goals aren't lofty goals. We can have lofty goals, but then we should break them down into SMART goals. And then T, time-oriented. So choose an end date and have your goal completed by it. If you need help to get started, you can consider the 6 dimensions of health. And I included SMART goal examples here just to kind of let you know what direction to go in when creating goals. We should always be making goals in our lives, all right? In the 6 dimensions of health, none of us have arrived in any of these. So there are goals to be made in these areas. We just have to decide what works for us and start putting in the time and effort into making and accomplishing our goals. So the 6 dimensions of health: physical, emotional, intellectual, spiritual, environmental, and social. So an example of a physical health SMART goal would be to drink 6 12-ounce glasses of water by 8 p.m. So do you see how it's time-oriented, super easy, right? Yeah. If it's your goal to drink more water, that's a great goal. Emotional. When I feel overwhelmed, I will write down 3 possible thought alternatives within 15 minutes of symptom onset. And I think we're going to be talking more about thought alternatives in a minute. Intellectual. Read 1 nonfiction book within 7 days. Spiritual. Pray for 15 minutes before 10 a.m. Environmental. Research at least 3 air cleaning houseplants by Thursday. Social. And by the way, when it comes to environmental, just having greenery in our house makes us happier. So I don't know if you guys are plant people or not.
I'm not plant. I kill every plant.
I kill some of them. I gotta be honest. But if you research, you can find ones that basically you couldn't kill them if you wanted to. And they clean your air and they uplift our mood. Social. Make 1 lunch plan with a friend by September 15th. So those are just examples of SMART goals. I want to see some of you ladies make a SMART goal. So go ahead and start filling up in there. And it has to be in one of those dimensions, all right?
And Sheila, can I address
Sheila?
Please. She said, my roommate has told me I need to get over it regarding my fears, like the mask and also my fear of driving on snow or ice. I've went off a cliff twice in my life driving in it. I'm not doing it. So for her, would that even be realistic, telling her just face it, get over it, how would you deal with a situation like that?
Okay, so what I would tell Sheila is, well, first I would ask, is you avoiding, did you say avoiding what?
Snow and ice.
Avoiding snow. Is it creating a disturbance in your life, or is it something that it's easily avoidable? And so you can answer that if you like. So if it's causing significant distress, then yeah, that could be a problem. If it's not, and it's no big deal, and it doesn't cramp your style, then you do what works for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I like that advice.
Okay. Work on some smarkles. I want to see some smarkles in there. Okay, so we're almost done. All right. Grounding. So grounding is for anxiety also. It's a way to regulate your breathing. So usually it's focusing on your breathing, slow, deep breaths. Usually they're timed. So like 5 seconds in, 7 seconds out. Just to be aware of what's happening physically with you. And then also noticing and relaxing muscle tension. So
that's
if you're
a big one for me.
Yeah. So if you're super anxious and your heart rate's going and your breathing is dysregulated, first work on your breathing to slow it down, and then next find where the tension is, and then you just relax it. Sometimes it helps to clench it even tighter and then relax it. So you can use that technique, and these are grounding techniques. So you can name things that you see in the room. This is something that is useful for people that are having panic disorder or a panic attack. So not only do you recognize how your breathing is, where your muscle tension is, but pull yourself out of your head and plant your feet on the ground in what's happening right now. So what's happening in your head isn't necessarily what's happening in your environment. You may be perfectly safe. Recognize that. So if you're safe, that's a good grounding technique. Recognize I'm safe. And then something that can be helpful is calling anxiety's bluff. So what I mean by that is it's like a way of taking your power back, right? So if anxiety is like a bully to you and you're a victim of it, then turn the tables. I know frequently in panic attacks, anxiety attacks, things like that, people will feel like they're dying, right? And it's a real feeling. And so what you can do is you can say, then kill me, anxiety. I call your bluff. Go ahead and kill me. And it's like you're taking your power back. And that can help you come out of a panic attack. So creating and maintaining strong support systems, it is not essential, but it's good if you connect yourself with people who have had similar experiences as you have. We talked all the way in the beginning about people who feel like they can't connect with other people. They feel lonely and disconnected socially. So connecting with people who have had similar experiences, now all of a sudden you're in an in-group, and that's going to help you out. So I know online there's probably a support group for everything.
Yeah.
But
Facebook groups.
Yeah, absolutely. But use what you have at your disposal. So I know for us, we have our little chat that it's constantly open, and we can constantly talk to each other. And
with the ladies.
It's a constant support group.
Yeah, it is.
Whenever we need each other, somebody's there. Somebody's available. Learn to laugh again. So comedy equals tragedy plus time. Laughing relieves physical tension and stress, leaving your muscles relaxed up to 15 minutes after laughing.
Wow.
Laughter boosts the immune system, decreases stress hormones, increases immune cells and infection-fighting antibodies, thus improving your resistance to disease. And if you could find a way to laugh.
That's why you laugh so much.
I joke all the time.
You're just trying to keep your immunities up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I got to do what I got to do. I think stick with me here. I think that it would be good for you to laugh at your own trauma. Find humor in your own trauma. I think that it relieves the tension.
This would be something my husband would do. My husband would totally do.
So my brother is who does this for me. I will call him complaining about whatever is upsetting me, and he will just make fun of it.
Oh,
It doesn't even matter what it is. He'll just make fun of me. He'll figure out some clever way to make a joke about the hard time I'm going through. And I appreciate it.
Aww.
Because I laugh about it. It relieves the tension about the situation. And it boosts my immune system too.
Yeah.
So win. I have this joke that I'm trying to work on because you know how people have like the emotional support animals, but then they die. There's a great joke in that. I need to figure out how to word it. They're emotional support animals.
Dead. And then they die. Yeah, that's why.
Okay.
Get a fake one.
Journal your thought alternatives. We talked about that earlier. The Socratic method. We talked about maybe thinking from other people's perspectives. It's good for you to write these things down in a journal. Write down your story alternatives. We talked about the narrative therapy and rewriting your story to better reflect your values, right? So if you don't want to be a victim, then don't have your story reflect that you're a victim.
I like that. I don't ever want to be I don't ever want to have the victim mentality.
Right. Nobody does.
Yeah.
Nobody does. Journal your SMART goals. Did anybody come up with a SMART goal? I'm not leaving until somebody comes up with a SMART goal. And write down your reliable coping techniques. And then finally here we have expand your coping skills tool chest. Establish boundaries with others. Learn to ask for help when you need it.
So boundaries with others, what could that look like?
So, you know, maybe you're not the toxic person, but you have somebody that's toxic in your life that you have to deal with. And it's traumatizing to you. And you need to make a decision. Am I going to continue? And this is in the environmental and the social dimensions. Are you going to continue to be a punching bag for this person? Or are you going to start putting your foot down and saying, I'm not going to accept this kind of treatment, and making it known to them?
And we're not talking about a difference of opinion here.
No.
We're talking about outright attacks. Name calling, could that fit in? I mean, just...
Sure. Yeah.
Accusing you of things, you know.
Yeah. Or just being generally a nasty person, right? We talked about one of the disorders being vindictive, right?
Okay. Yeah.
You shouldn't have to tolerate that.
Right.
Try aromatherapy. Take a walk to think, to sort your thoughts out. Play with a pet. There are studies that show that just being around, right? We talked about emotional support animals. So just being with a pet, petting a pet, looking at a pet, looking at a picture of a puppy improves your mood. Wow. So you could just get on the computer.
Did you hear that, my husband?
Look at a picture of a puppy.
He would disagree with you. He'd be like, that makes me in a bad mood, looking at a picture of a puppy.
What does he like? Like baby snakes or something? What does he?
He likes baby kittens.
Okay, or a kitten.
Not a full-grown cat,
same.
but he likes kittens.
Okay, here we go. To clean the bathroom by 7 p.m. by 7 p.m. Thursday. I like that. Clean the bathroom. And you know what? You could even go even more specific. So you should include what that means to you, right? So if cleaning your bathroom means cleaning the toilet and the mirror, then be more specific. Yeah, be as specific as you can, because your sense of accomplishment is heightened when you have done it, right? So if you say clean the bathroom, and when you're done on Thursday at 7 p.m. and you're like, I didn't put the stupid rugs in the wash, right? And
yep. Oh, that's, I see. So you have like almost a specific checklist that you're listing.
Be as specific as you possibly can. Yeah. Like baby steps.
Specific.
Baby steps.
But this seems like a big SMART goal. SMART goals are supposed to be small, right?
Yeah. Small.
My SMART goal is just to homeschool my girls Monday through Friday, keep the baby happy. That one right there is almost impossible for me sometimes. To have dinner on the table by 6:30 and to be okay with the house being a little messy.
It doesn't count. That's funny though. You can have a bunch of SMART goals out of that. And I don't recommend having a long list of SMART goals going. Do one at a time.
Yeah.
You know, start small.
Like Kirsten's, my SMART goal is to walk while my oldest daughter bikes daily.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. All right. Good. Very good.
Do my laundry tomorrow, Amber said.
Yeah, that's good. but it has to be time oriented, right? So you have to know, you have to give yourself a limit when it has to be done by.
Probably, Kirsten, they probably did. We had a couple penguin trolls on here.
What does
I've been
that
seeing
mean?
them everywhere. Macedonian penguin.
Oh,
And then,
I
and
haven't
then
been
an
seeing
Ethiopian penguin. I blocked them both.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then an
I always miss
Ethiopian
the good
penguin. I blocked both the penguins. Sorry, penguins.
Okay, so barriers to improvement. Avoidance. So that brings us all the way full round to the beginning. So how'd you even get into this mess? Avoidance. You avoided processing the event, and then that led to trauma. So avoidance later on, after you already have the trauma and you don't want to work on it. So in general, people don't like to initiate the emotional pain of addressing their trauma. It hurts to bring it up. It hurts to think about it. It hurts to talk about it.
Yeah.
The individual may fear appearing weak, flawed, damaged, or crazy, or judged, right? They don't want to feel judged.
Yeah.
And then somatization. Individual may not readily see that there's a connection between physical symptoms and emotional symptoms, meaning that they're having the tension, they're having the headaches, they're having the shortness of breath and the cardiovascular issues and the gut issues, but they don't recognize that it was from something that they hadn't processed properly.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just like not knowing there's something wrong to change it. So that's it. That's all of it. I actually did pretty good on time. Only went 10 minutes over. So
we covered a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot. So,
and she's going to keep an eye on the comments and things over the next few days. So if you guys have any comments or questions, go ahead and leave them down below. Share it with someone that it could help. I know we all have different levels of trauma in our life.
Mm-hmm.
And I really believe a lot of success in relationships, because this can affect all, if you don't deal with this, it can affect all different
every aspect of your life.
Yeah. I mean, your friendships, your marriage,
mm-hmm.
Your relationship with your kids.
Mm-hmm. Or your relationship with yourself. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. How you view yourself, how
mm-hmm.
you think of yourself. So Ashley said, can our dreams tell us that we have trauma we didn't deal with? And I almost think they kind of can. Your subconscious thinking about it.
I think so sometimes,
because there's been times in my life when I've had reoccurring dreams,
mm-hmm.
and then I deal with it, and then they go away. I deal with whatever that dream was about over
mm-hmm.
and over, and I still have some unresolved relationships in my life, and I still dream about it sometimes.
Yeah. Well, that should be what you should make some smart goals about, how to figure out how you can
I've tried reaching out to that person that used to be a good friend, but never got a response. So
now it's time for radical acceptance.
Yeah, just accepting that it's
mm-hmm.
done.
Yeah, so radical acceptance doesn't mean that you don't do anything. You just don't make any moves in your life. You don't make any decisions.
Mm-hmm.
No, you do what you can, right? And then when you've done everything you can do, you've done everything you can do.
Yep. So good advice. No, there's a lot packed into it. So I know we covered a lot, but yeah, like I said, what if you get a panic attack? Then forget the dream. I woke up with a panic attack yesterday.
Really?
I sleep with the headache pillow on my head, and it fell down over my face, and I couldn't breathe. And I was screaming, I couldn't breathe.
Oh.
And it was because the baby was pushing in my lungs.
Yeah.
So I woke up panicking, get this baby out of me. Like
mm-hmm.
I was panicking. And I just laid there, and I'm like, okay, Cassandra, you can breathe. It's fine.
You were like half in your dream state.
Yes, I was.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think dreams can reflect just the worries that we have. Even some worries that maybe we don't think about constantly, but they're just kind of lingering in there.
Subconsciously.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely know that's true with me
in
my life. So I can tell a lot by my dreams. For sure. But good questions. Yeah. Keep them coming in the chat below if you have anything else. And we're going to try to address it.
Was this beneficial to anybody? Just at least tell me that. That's usually what I ask people. Was it benefit? Did you find it beneficial?
I hope it was. I feel like a lot of ladies really struggle. There's like a little bit of a lag, so we always have to fill in talk while they're chatting. But I feel like a lot of ladies struggle in this, and I do feel like it causes a lot of detrimental effects on their relationships.
Oh,
so
Good.
I knew they would think it was helpful.
Yeah.
I liked your ideas too, and you had put in there to journal, write it down, create a journal.
Yes.
You know, that's huge to me. Writing is huge to me.
And it's great for you to look back, because just like when we watch our kids grow up, it happens so slowly. It's not until we look at that picture of them from, 5 years ago, they're like, wow, they got so big, they changed so much. That's what journaling does for us. It can help us look back at that photograph and see how far we've come.
Yeah.
And that increases motivation to continue working toward our goals.
That's good. I like that. Writing is super therapeutic to me. So, and then I think just having a, and we're just about done, Jenny. So sorry. She just got on during her life. And I really think a local church can help too. I mean, it helps with the support system and talking it out with your friends at church. And
obviously the one thing I didn't even talk about was, the Bible. So if we have one more minute, what do you ladies think about any applications that kind of matched up with maybe what you already knew about what the Bible teaches, maybe some things that you are like, no, I'm going to discard that. There's no way that that's going to be helpful. Because I'm just giving you information. You do what with it, what you want. You take. I
liked what you mentioned about the thought errors involving perception about people. And my husband has often said, where with the mind reading, he's often said that it's so funny some of the things that he gets accused of, and he feels like it's projecting what's in their heart.
Sure.
So I mean, does that definitely play into it? We think we know what everyone else, or how they're going, why they're responding the way they are, what their intentions are that no one knows about but you.
Yeah, there's so much about psychology that we didn't even touch on. So this is just a chat about trauma. There's so many other different types of aspects of the way that we relate to others in our environment that's very interesting, and we just didn't have time for it today. But do your own research into some of it. Groupthink, the way that we're influenced to basically shut up and do what everybody else is doing.
Right.
That comes natural to us.
It comes natural to want to do what everyone else is doing?
Yes. Yeah. So there was a study where
I don't feel like that's natural to me at all. Am I just weird?
No, that's good. I don't think that it's something we should want to have happen. I think it's just part of the sin nature. Okay. So there was a study where they would have somebody come and sit into a waiting room, right? And the waiting room is...
I saw this.
Yeah, so the waiting room is filled with people, and it's an old study. It's filled with people who know that they're in on it. They know what's going on. So what happens is they're waiting in there, and this bell rings, and everybody stands up. So it only took that second time for that newcomer to just stand up without questioning it with everybody else. Right. They don't know why they're doing it. They're just doing it to be part of the group. They're doing it to not look odd to other people, right? Shame is huge. That shame, social shame. That should be a group that you should do.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Yep.
Did you already do one on social shame that I just haven't checked out yet?
I don't know if I've specifically done that, but that's been a huge thing this year.
Oh yeah.
The social pressure and the social shaming. And I don't know. I feel I don't mind being in a public place and hundreds of people, and I'm the only unmasked one. I don't know.
I know that feeling.
Yeah, I know. So I don't go along with all of it. But interesting. Yep. Okay. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up. It's 15 after. So thanks for joining, and share, subscribe, all the good stuff. So we will see you next week. Bye.
Okay, cool.